don't stop. Keep it on. It's rocking the place. Well,
Thank you for having me here. I never expected to have such a music background, kind of as if I'm a rock star. I guess I dress appropriately for that music, right? Did I? Okay, I just want to have a good understanding or an idea who am I speaking to, because this is very important. Can I have a show of hand who of those of you who are actually working a startup or starting a startup or thinking of starting a startup? Just show of your hands, please. Thank you. You are my crowd. So for people who are investors that look for opportunity to put money to well spend, couple, you are my world as well. So for those who are in the corporate world trying to think about innovations or just trying to see what's happening in my side of the world, show your hand, please. Okay, we have a few of you too. So hopefully through this, it will help you to understand better what to look for in terms of a highly defensible business. So let me give you some background. I'm an engineer by training. So I'm an engineer from U of T, and miraculously, I did my MBA when I was on my mat leave. I was extremely productive. During the day, I sang Disney princess songs, but in the evening, I went to have my intellectual challenges that's necessary to keep me insane. I mean sane, not insane, sane. And then before I became an angel investor, I helped my husband. He's the CEO and co-founder of Wattpad. I helped him scale the user base from its infancy to tens of millions. Today, Wattpad has over 70 million monthly users from across the world. Every month, we have about 22 billion minutes clocked on our platform. We have over 500 million stories being shared on our platform already, and every day we have about 500,000 chapter uploads. So that's the kind of scale that we're looking at when I'm talking about network effect-based company, large online community. That's the type of companies that interest me a lot. And before that, as Caitlin was saying, I was the director of product development at BrightSpark. I started angel investing in 2014. So far, I have made 22 investments. These are some of them. I don't think I actually squeezed every single one of the logo here. But these companies are very interesting. They are not in a specific vertical. I actually invest agnostically in terms of verticals, but they have all one common theme or criteria to become my portfolio companies. Every single one of them that you see there, it's a network effect-based company. That's what I invest in. And this thesis have helped me tremendously in my investment. I'll tell you how much in terms of return, privately, but I'm very proud of what these companies have done for me. So today, I'm going to walk you through with a framework that I have created to help entrepreneurs or even investors to look at how a company should be going through the steps to create a very strong network effect-based product. So what is network effect? The way that I describe it is the value of the product will increase as more people use it. So think about Facebook. The more people use Facebook, the more valuable Facebook is. Think about Uber. The more drivers you come on, the more riders you have. More riders you have, more drivers want to come on and make some money. So network effect is really the cornerstone or the building blocks for building marketplaces. AI, why I say AI? At the end of the day, AI is just a data network. They need, for any AI to work, it's not only they build that model based on historical data, they have to have a data network effect to continuously have an influx of data to allow them to stay afresh and keep their competitive advantage. Blockchain certainly is a network effect-based company, a technology. If you have 2 nodes, it's useless. You have to have many nodes and many transactions to happen on it to make it a viable blockchain. So why is it important? Why network effect is important? Because this is the most valuable asset in your product. It increases defensibilities, and it allows many more business models that maybe you set off to envision. And typically, network effects, it's a winners take all type business. So I created this framework called ASSET, ASSET. It's an acronym stand for 5 things or 5 steps. And today I'm going to be using Wattpad as an example. But at the same time, I would try my best to kind of pull in examples from non-Wattpad type companies to help you understand the power of this framework. And at the end of the day, what I really want you to do is being able to use this framework and apply in your very own business. Because that's the most important. To listen to the Wattpad story, yeah, it's interesting. But being able to apply that framework into your business, that's where the power actually is. So when you are listening to it, try very hard to think about how that applies to your own company or your product or your portfolio companies. So the first letter is A. What it means is atomic unit. The way that I define atomic unit is the smallest product unit that your users or your customer will congregate around. So on Wattpad, the atomic unit is a story. We want our users to come and congregate or engage around stories. Now that's how I define it. So I want to make this very interactive. So I want people to shout out when I ask a question so that I don't do all the talking. With that understanding of an atomic unit, can someone tell me what is the atomic unit on YouTube? Thank you, video. On the same vein, what's the atomic unit on Airbnb? Posting a listing of a place. This has to be very, very carefully crafted when you are building your business. Because by defining your atomic unit slightly different, even for the same problem, you end up having a totally different product. So let me give you this example. Every day, there are many people pitch to me with business ideas. And very often, there are companies who try to kind of solve this problem all the time. There are companies who want to hire people, but they cannot find qualified people. There are people who want to find a job, but they cannot find the companies that they really like. So there's always an inefficiency in the market to match job with people. Agree? Right? So if I am an innovator, and I try to create this network effect-based company using a job posting, it's the atomic unit. What do I end up building? Anybody want to give it a shot? Give me an example. If I use job posting as the atomic unit, what would I end up getting? I couldn't hear you. Louder. Thank you. Monster.ca, indeed. That's what I'll end up building. But if I turn it around, I say, let me build a network using qualified people's resume as the atomic unit. What would I end up building? Thank you. Can I louder? LinkedIn. You see? By just defining the atomic unit slightly differently, you approach the problem dramatically differently. So that's very important that you really focus on what am I building here and what is the atomic unit in my product. So I'm going to continue to walk you through the model with Wattpad, but keep in mind, while you're listening to this, what is your atomic unit for your own product? The second acronym here is an S. It stands for seed the supply. For any marketplaces, data network, you always face with the chicken and egg problem. I don't have atomic units. How do I have people consume them? So there are a lot of people kind of couldn't really figuring how to break that cycle of building something from non-existence. Let me tell you the very first step you should focus on is to seed the supply. If your customer or your user have no idea what that atomic unit looks like, they don't know what to do on your platform. So what happened is when we started Wattpad back in the 2006, we're talking about, those, at the time, the phones are not like an iPhone. We're talking about the flip phone, the Motorola Razr. Who remember those stupid phones? Excuse me. Anybody from Motorola here? But anyway, you understand what I meant, right? So when people download the Java app for Wattpad, They don't know what it is all about. Do you know what I see on Wattpad at the time? Because it's a mobile reading app. It allows people to upload something so that they can download it on the web. So at home they could sit on the computer and post something, and then when they are commuting, they read it on the phone. So that was the whole the technology behind it. I mean, it's nothing rocket science. So do you know what I see when I was actually moderating the community? People were posting textbook content out there or math formulas. I'm like, what are these people using our app for? I figured, must be a student trying to cheat on the test. I couldn't figure out other, reason. Why would people put math equations, on their phone? So we have to really educate people what Wattpad is all about. So very luckily, we had established a relationship with Gutenberg, and they allowed us to suck in over 20,000 classic music stories that are in the public domain already. So stories like, I don't think you guys will read those kind of stuff, like Little Women, Pride and Prejudice, Charles Dickens stuff. So those are the work that we suck in from the Moby Dick. Moby Dick was actually the very first one that we suck in from internet. Then when people try to kind of like go look for a jar file and say, free story to read, they will then be able to see what Wattpad is all about and say, oh, okay, I have some free story. They come and read, oh, Charles Dickens. So at least they know that it's not for them to cheat on their test, but to read some stories there. So once we kind of do that, the community start to grow a little bit. We finally actually get some people to post their original stories on Wattpad. Thank God for the 15-year-olds in UK. They were the one, who were enthusiastically posting their love story with the vampires or the love stories with Justin Bieber on Wattpad. Thank God that we have them. So those were how, we kind of finally have some content, to seat the supply side. Very quickly, we have to focus on the demand. So the second S stand for, which is the third letter in the acronym, means scale the demand. Once you have the supply, a lot of the times for business, they run into a danger of, oh my gosh, I have all these people using my platform. I got to make sure they're happy. Just imagine for a second, if Wattpad at that time say, oh my gosh, we got all these 15-year-old writing stories on Wattpad, we got to make sure they're happy. So let me allow them to change fonts. Let me allow them to, hone their writing skills. Let we give them a spell checker. All those kind of writing tools. What will we end up being? A writing tools? So that applies to a lot of SaaS-based business. You smell where the money is. You forgot you're actually building a network effect-based company. You end up building a very heavy feature set for one side of the market, and the other side is like, what's in it for me? So when we actually have some traction, thank God for Steve Jobs. He launched iPhone 3, 2007, 2008, and then follow on with the larger smartphone, so it's no longer the Reza, but you have more meaningful screen size. So we made our app available on every single technology platform, from Android, iPhone to Java phones, feature phones basically, to scale the demand. When people write stories, who are they writing for? The readers. So it's extremely important for us to attract far more readers to make those writers feel satisfied. Typically, when you are in a marketplace, the supply has to be relatively scarce so that you don't have that imbalance. Right? So even up till today, I would say roughly, don't quote me on it, I don't have those real data from Wattpad team, but I would say roughly, maybe 20% of our users are actually writers, and then 80% of them are actually readers. So it's extremely important that you think of different strategy, different ways. How do I actually grow the user base, the demand side, so that the supply side gets satisfied? So there are a lot of people who try to build marketplace that say, I want to connect, restaurants with consumer. You can build the most sophisticated restaurant tools for them to manage all the orders, but if you don't bring them customers, you are a useless app for them. So that's very important that you have that balance. Grabs, even during the early days. If you smell in a company trying to be so heavily, developed for one side of the marketplace, there's a danger. And I think it's important that you kind of have to challenge them. And why aren't you doing for the other side of the market? Now, this is what I was just saying. To scale the demand, we basically create the app for all platforms, and it allowed us to enable our users to read and write anywhere, anytime. Right now, 90% of our user engagement, including story writing, will actually happen on mobile. Can you imagine people writing on their phone like this? They do that all the time. Now, we are now onto the fourth letter here. It's called increase the network effect coefficient. So that is the E, the network effect coefficient in the acronym. So what do I mean by that? Imagine if you have a ton of users, they come in every day, but they don't talk to people, they don't do anything. Can you think of a business that looks like that? You have a lot of users, but they don't do anything other than just reading your content. I'm sorry? Netflix, okay. They actually give them a lot of data. But think of, give me, any suggestions? Huh? Media. Wikipedia. Yeah. So then, I'm not saying that they are a very weak defensibility, but think about it this way. It's kind of like newspaper. You have content, people come and read, but that's not much of a differentiator. Then the network effect coefficient is actually rather small. How I define network effect coefficient, you can see in a diagram here. It's the volume of a cuboid. Anybody remember how to calculate the volume of a cuboid? I'm sure you do. Height, width, depth, multiply them, right? So the way that I define it is the more users you have, the more frequent they engage, and the more connections they have within your platform, you effectively increase the volume of the cuboid. So that is what I call the network effect coefficient. So there are a lot of companies, they try to kind of build their user base, and they say, oh, I'm going to get a lot of eyeballs, I'm going to get them on and read a lot of things. That's great, but you end up having a line. Right? That's how you calculate it. It's 1 pixel, and they just come on, right? So if you create a platform that has a lot of users but a little bit of engagement, like Netflix, you have a lot of users. They do come on frequently. But let me ask you this question. If Hulu actually allowed you to have far more content, much cheaper price, would you still continue to be a Netflix user? Probably not. So the defensibility is not as strong then if you actually allow them. I'm not saying that Netflix should do it, but have a lot of users, they engage frequently, and they even have connections within the platform. That's what Wattpad is all about. We have a lot of users. On average, every one of them come on our platform for half an hour every day, and they make friends. All those writers, they are not leaving Wattpad. Why? Because their readers are here. When they go on and they say, I have a chapter uploaded, within minutes, the people are like, oh, I love it. When are you uploading the next chapter? Like, I got to tell you this one. This is going to be so blowing your mind. Our most read story or most popular story on Wattpad is called After. Right now, it's actually being made into a movie, and hopefully next year you'll be able to watch it in major theaters. This story was so crazily popular that whenever the story get updated, meaning a chapter get added, within half an hour, do you know how many comments being posted? Over 100,000. Will that writer ever want to leave Wattpad? I don't think so. So that's what I meant by increasing the network effect coefficient. And this is in another word, this is where you need to look at the engagement on the platform. A lot of the company make the mistakes of thinking about the engagement when they're at the supply stage. And that's a danger, right? Because you think about how do I get the suppliers to work on more often and log in more often? Then it's building more feature set for the supply. And sometimes, engagement comes in the form of fake engagement. So I'm going to tell you this story. I was just sharing with the people outside just earlier. When we're talking about 2009, 2010 timeframe when online community management was unheard of, people were like, what do you mean by community and management? Because Twitter was maybe 2 years old at the time, and Facebook was maybe a few more years older. And people didn't understand what engagement was. And certainly I didn't understand what engagement was. I was just trying to do whatever makes sense to make people use the product more often. So a lot of our users at the time were teenagers. So they keep telling us and say, oh, I love Wattpad. I made so many good friends here. Wattpad changed my life. I would love to be able to talk to my friends on Wattpad every day. Of course you want to. So you say, yeah, use, DM or private messages. Or just go, talk about the stories in a comment page. No. We want to chat with our friends. So for me, as the head of community and content, I had a great debate with the CTO, Ivan. And I said, hey, that's what the users want. We're talking about, very early days here. People don't really understand. So he said, no, it's too much work. There's only 4 of us here. If I do the chat features, I won't be able to kind of like refactor the code. I'm like, but we really need it. So in a way, I won. That, he said, okay, there's some, ready-made chat add-on that we can just plug into the system. We're just going to put 3 lines of code and let those people chat nuts. But I don't agree with this feature. I said, it's okay. We'll give it a shot. That's what people want. Why not? I thought it's good for engagement, right? They come on more often. More people come on, more connections. I thought that was great. But in the end, I was the one, as I said, 4 people in the team, right? I was the one who's sitting behind the Wattpad logo for chat. Do you know every day at 3 o'clock what happened? Any wild guess here? Thank you. And then Wattpad on a sudden say, hi, Wattpad. I'm back from school. How are you doing? What's your favorite color? I met a hot guy today. What do you think? Should I give him my number? Oh, you're not a robot. I thought you were a robot. I do get a lot of engagement like that. And they do talk to each other, not just only to me, okay? Because chat, after all, is not just to me, it's to each other. Artificially, we actually have more traffic. But the page view, at that time, we're still looking at that, that was part of some of the traffic. The engagement was very low quality. Why? Because they're not being done on the atomic unit. They chit-chat. Takes away all the time that I really want them to do what I want them to do, is read stories, tell me which one they like, write more stories. That's what I really wanted them to do. So engagement actually can come at a price if you don't know exactly what you want that engagement to achieve. So I hope that this will give you a better insight of what do I look at when I come to engagement. Don't just blindly listen to the users, because it all ties back to the atomic unit. What do you want the product look like? The last letter in this framework is T, means track proprietary data or proprietary insight. This is a very, very interesting experience, and I really want to share this. With our Wattpad proprietary data set, we made the headlines in Perez Hilton in 2010. At the time we're talking about, there was no coverage of Wattpad whatsoever on the internet. We were still a startup. Who cares about Wattpad? So we were, a nobody company. But we made headlines within maybe 2 days. Why? I was the head of community, and every day all I think of is how do I create a sticky product that allows people to continue to engage on our platform, will never leave us, but bring more of their friends and create more stories. That's what I do every day, So one day, it dawns on me. I said, hey, a lot of these popular stories actually get paid turn into movies. And every time they say, oh, Twilight now is turned into a movie, and then the fans go crazy. Who's gonna be the Edward Cullen, and who's gonna be the Jacob? In the novel, and when Hunger Games come up, people kind of like, who is going to take on this role? And sometimes they write about love story they have with their teen idols as well. So I said, we are capturing the imagination of the users already by sharing their stories. What if I capture one more set of proprietary data that no one else have, and that's the imagination of casting? So we created this casting feature that allows people to say, I'm going to put Harry Styles as the possessive vampire, but Taylor Swift will be the stubborn vampire slayer. So that's the type of crazy little features that we add on, and with the whole idea is to capture more proprietary data set. So I am very obsessed with data, and I look at data all the time. So one day I decided to figuring out, well, I want to know who is actually most cast in these stories. So I ran a few queries in the database, and voila, I got the list of the top 20. I got some surprises. I'm like, how would Taylor Lautner be more popular than Rob Pattinson? One is the werewolf, one is the vampire, but who knows? Maybe the teenagers have a very twisted mind, but anyway. So I got that list from the database query, and I sent it to the marketing person. I say, I don't know what you're going to use this for, but it looked interesting to me, certainly. She tweeted a couple times, and I think within 24 hours, it makes the headline of Perez Hilton. That was a daunting moment, the moment that dawns on me. I'm like, hold on. My proprietary data set is actually extremely valuable. And that literally lays the foundation of what Wattpad is doing right now, is to use machine learning to go through the 500 million stories and half a chapter, a 500,000 chapter upload every day, to understand the popularity pattern of these stories, who is reading it, why are they reading it, why they love it, which one is up and rising, what are some of the potential casting, they want to do. And with that insight, we have now over 50 movies in the pipeline globally. We have many TV shows globally made. If you're a Hulu subscriber, no, they are not here in Canada. Yeah, darn. So there's one Hulu show called Light as a Feather. It's our partnership. And if you have a teenage daughter or nieces, in the springtime, I bet you they must have watched a movie called The Kissing Booth on Netflix, because that's the most watched movie ever on Netflix at the time, and it was our story. So all I'm trying to say is we could have done it without data. So think about when you're building a marketplace, don't just settle on the transaction layer. It's very, very important that you look under the hood and see what kind of data are you getting underneath. That really enables you to create far more business model than just eyeballs, than just transaction. Wattpad is a transactional platform in a way, because readers read a story. Though the transaction value is free right now, but it's still a transaction. But what's valuable is the data that we collect over time. So I just want to kind of remind everyone, it's very easy to understand. It's ASSET, asset. A for atomic unit, S for seeding the supply, another S for scaling the demand, and E is for enlarging the network effect coefficient, and T is to track your proprietary data set or proprietary insight. And that's it for my talk. It's rather short, but I purposely try to do it this way because I want to give people time. If you think you have questions right away, I'm happy to take those questions right now. Okay, this gentleman first. But Google is a data network. That's right. That's a great question. I ask myself that question almost every day when there's a company come my way. I think the answer is it really depends on the market. Okay? Um, if we look at Uber, is it okay to be Lyft? I think so. In China, Didi, actually, I don't know who bought whom, but Uber tried to get in there and not having a lot of great success, so they end up, having a M&A with Didi. So from a geographical success perspective, I think there are opportunities to be like a winner in a geographic location if the company can prove it that way. But at the same time, I really enjoy this question because I want to tell you this one specific example and you understand what I mean by that. When I was investing in 2015, there are many, many companies come to me and pitch to me the idea of food delivery. I was so tired of it. Every day they would say, I'm Uber for food delivery. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I'm like, okay, yet another one. Until one day there's one company called Skip the Dishes come across my desk. And the reason they came across my desk was because they were trying to reference check some of the investors that are interested in investing in them. And being such a social person, they find me and Alan, and we looked at it. I'm like, hold on a second. I said, this company is so unique. I'm like, why unique? Then I said to him, I said, think about all the food delivery company that we were seeing at the time. They were all launched in SF. In the Canadian ones, they all tried to launch in Toronto, Montreal, never Ottawa. So, but this company launched in Winnipeg. I'm like, Winnipeg? What's in Winnipeg? I don't even know what's in Winnipeg. But they are doing a great business there. I'm like, let me go see under the hood. I didn't actually go to Winnipeg. I mean, there's nothing for me to do there. But I meant I go, meaning going to my computer to look underneath what's happening. And what's interesting is they were actually creating a logistic model to connect drivers and restaurants and consumer in a low density market. The logistics over there is drastically different than the logistics that you run in San Fran. I bet you that model will work very well in Halifax. But the model is not necessarily going to be so wellly optimized for high density communities. We looked at it, I kind of looked at it, and I'm like, you know what? This is special enough. I'm in. So me and Alan are the very first investor, before even the VCs, that we say, yes, we're in. Guess what happened? It's a grand exit. They got acquired by Just Eat for $200 million. That alone gave me a 12 times return. So to answer your question, it really depends. So, but at the same time, I was in an event talking like this, and afterwards, there are like lines of people just trying to pitch to me and talk to me. And I stand there for 45 minutes. At the end of the 45 minutes, I really couldn't hold it any longer. Because one guy came to me and say, oh, I'm doing this whole food delivery service. It's kind of like Uber for food delivery and da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah. I was trying to be very polite. I said, yeah, you need more tractions. And until you have tractions, it's just an idea. And he said, if I got 5,000 orders, are you going to invest in it? I'm like, mister, I don't try to be rude, but I just stand here for 45 minutes in one venue after one event. You're the 5th person who pitched to me about Uber for food delivery. You tell me if 5,000 order is a good enough number. I hope that answered your question. Well, think about it this way. Every day we have 500,000 chapter uploads. Right now we have 500 million stories on our platform. If we own every single one of them, how many checks do we have to write? So it doesn't work that way. But because we use machine learning, we have AI, so we can actually detect a story even before they become popular. So it allowed us to have far better access to the up and rising stories and to those superstars. And because they trust us, we're talking about a lot of these stories. They may be self-published or they may never have been published. And if they get approached by an agent, who knows if that agent is actually legit or not? But if they trust us, that's where the value they give to that we give to them. Not only just trust, but we have all the marketing. We have a community. Like imagine if you engage your fans, you become a movie shows or you become a book. We have 70 million users that you can reach to every month. 10 more minutes. That gentleman over there. Do I believe in AI generated content? We have not. But I don't mean that, we really have not. Because, at the end of the day, we have data scientists in the company. Who knows what they are playing with, right? But to answer your questions, it's not unheard of. In Japan, they have already used an AI to generate a novel. But I'm not necessarily interested in that kind of technology. I'm not saying that it's not good or it's whatever, but I guess the focus of us is to really unleash the human power, the human creativity. And at the end of the day, AI created story, it's still based on data. If you feed the data, the machine, with all the Charles Dickens stories, you end up getting another story that looks exactly like Charles Dickens. So who knows? Maybe in the future, when people write stories, they write totally different than what it is right now. The machine will still need to have these kind of creativity input. So I think Wattpad is staying on course of unleashing that human creativity, but powered by machine learning at the back end to help them reach a wider audience than what normally a human can do. Yes? Well, that's a great question. Certainly, that's why I'm very careful when it comes to selecting my portfolio companies, because a lot of the companies, let me just do it in three buckets, because right now I invest in marketplaces. It could be consumer marketplaces, like to skip the dishes. I do also do B2B marketplaces, and I invest a lot in AI. AI to me is data network. And I do start to do blockchain, but I don't do coins. I do actually the underlying data, blockchain technology, or creating the layer, the application layer sitting on top of blockchain to create that network. A lot of the times when it comes to marketplaces, a lot of the founders will stay at, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm just gonna leave it that way. They stay at the ass of the asset model. They stop at the scaling the demand, and they totally not understand what increasing the engagement, and most importantly, they have no idea what it means by tracking proprietary data, because they were so focused on, oh my gosh, I got this person using the product and they're transacting, so how do I kind of get them to transact more often? Yes, there are businesses like that. Uber is like that. But then that means the unit of economics has to be very attractive for that kind of as model, but not asset. But even that, I challenge you, Uber can totally turn that into an Uber Eat, which they did, because it's the same logistic network, and they bring in more engagement by engaging all the restaurants. And maybe you don't know. Maybe they actually knowing that you travel to this location often, and maybe they will someday give you coupons. That's proprietary data set. So of course, I have met many companies who just stay at the S. And I encourage them to go deeper to look at the E and the T. Some can do it, some cannot do it. 6 more minutes. No more questions? All right, I hope you guys enjoy my presentation here. Have a great day.